Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. We're very fortunate this evening to have with us Pastor Favor Asanye Okafor. She's the head of the Lord's Favor Schools and Medical Missions of Africa. She's here for a short time, and we're very fortunate to have her volunteer to come down to the studio and tell us about her mission and goals, objectives, and so forth about her schools and her medical mission. Before we start, though, ladies and gentlemen, we want to remind you that Africa is as far as we know, is the beginning of mankind.
That's right.
And Mrs. Favor is going to tell us not the approximate, but the location of Nigeria and also where mankind started. But before we do that, I'd like for you to tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background. Tell us a little bit about Ms. Favor.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks. It is my pleasure to be here. I am an educationist and a theologian. I have a bachelor's in education with emphasis in language arts and literature.
Mm-hmm.
I studied also for a degree in theology, and I graduated with honors for both.
Wow.
Yeah, I've done more than I've done master's degree programs for both education and theology right now.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, I've been working on building schools in Africa. I've been shuttling between here, United States of America in Lake County, to Africa for the past 20 years.
Wow.
Building schools and raising support for the missions, the medical missions, which is being overseen by my husband, Reverend Dr. K. Okafor.
Mm-hmm.
We've partnered together to help the low-income children in Nigeria in particular to be able to earn some degrees in different fields of endeavors. And for a place like Africa, the low-income children don't ever go to college because they don't go to good grade schools.
Okay.
But we've been burdened to build good grade schools, and for little or nothing, been able to put these kids through school over scholarships, which I raised from here, from friends and from partners here in America. We've been able to work together to get education across to hundreds and thousands of children in Africa. Right now, if you come to some low-income families, you have university and college graduates, which we can say are a product of our efforts and endeavors from here. We've also run the medical facility free of charge for a huge seminary in Africa. I guess the largest seminary. My husband has been working very hard, giving medical attention to the entire community and the pastors and students in the seminary for over 20-some years, for like 22 years right now. And all these are done because of your support from here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, your husband is a medical doctor?
Yes, he's a medical doctor and a theologian.
Oh.
So he's a qualified doctor, and he also earned a degree in theology. And he teaches at the seminary too. So he's like a dual, profession.
Right.
So,
well, all the things that you're doing, where do you get your financial support from for your schools and also your medical mission?
Well, as a Christian, I know my supply comes from God.
Okay.
However, he has people like you, and I do work here. Sometimes I do work. When I work, I gather resources that I get paid for, with and buy, toys, get them shipped to Africa.
Okay.
Sometimes I use it to rent facilities. Like right now, we're trying to build a church, and I need to rent a facility for a church. So all the monies that we earn here, that are donated here, we put into work. Make good use of them in Africa.
This is fantastic. And there's no doubt about it, God placed on your heart. We all are here for, God put us here for a reason, right? A purpose. Right. We all have a purpose-driven life. And you put you and your husband together to complete a mission that you're doing. And you have no choice.
Of course, we don't have a choice.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about denominations. So we're going to talk about your schools, But how many denominations are there, or what is the most prevalent denomination in Nigeria?
Well, for the Pentecostal, we have Assembly of God Church as the largest Pentecostal movement in Africa and in Nigeria. We have in Nigeria, we're like 4-point-some million. And the Catholics are also the largest evangelical Orthodox movement. And my late father, Reverend Augustus Asonye, was the first pastor of the Assembly of God in Nigeria.
Oh.
Actually, I was trying to buy a book from Amazon, and I saw a book on Pentecostalism in Africa. And I bought the book from Amazon. And on the first page, I was so shocked. I saw my dad's name, Pastor Asonye, was able to plant churches and start a Pentecostal movement in Africa, the very first Pentecostal movement. And that really inspired me. And for me, being an educationist, actually, my greatest mentor was my late dad. I actually wanted to be a lawyer because my uncles, my dad's friends, everybody was like, oh, she's so smart. She should be a lawyer. She should be a professor of law. That was me.
Okay.
But my dad's like, no, she's got to be a teacher because I need her to affect lives, to build schools, to raise up children in the way of the Lord. And I submitted. And here I am being a teacher. And my dad had a vision about planting hospitals, but he was a pastor. And he got me married to a medical doctor who later became a pastor. And both of us have been in the mission field, working as in the medical missions and the school missions.
Let's give a kudos to your dad. This book here gives tributes to him, is that right?
Yes, that's the book he wrote. And those are his cousins. The church actually, what you know as Assembly of God Church in Nigeria, which has about 4 million adherents today, started in his mother's sitting room. That's his younger brother sitting by him, and that's his cousin. They took 3 of them. So they were thirsty for the gospel and to speak in tongues. And they started a prayer meeting right inside his mom's house because he was ostracized from his dad's side, for praying and fasting and trying to speak in tongues. Then that was way back in the 30s.
Now, if anyone want to get a copy of the book, they go to Amazon, is that right?
Yes, we have it at Amazon. I guess for like $10.
The history and expansion of Assemblies of God in Nigeria. Yeah, we have to give tribute to him on it. But tell us about. I know we got a lot of material to cover, but Nigeria. You mentioned about 4 million people.
Well, no, Nigeria has that's the church adherence. Nigeria has like about 200 million.
200 million.
Yes, population between 180 and 200 million in population. It is the largest populated country in the whole of Africa.
Oh.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
But it has a dimension of land space geographically like 1/3 of Texas, so it's little. But it's got this huge number of people. That is why we struggle for a lot of resources, because though Nigeria is very wealthy in resources.
Well, tell us about the resources there.
Yes, it's got gold, it's got diamonds, but it's got a lot of oil. I guess it's about the 3rd oil imported, the third largest oil importing country in the world. However, we don't have good management right now. So the country is still living below poverty level. Yes, for the most part.
Now, do you have Africans managing, or do you have outside?
We have Africans managing, and it gets worse right now because we have a president that's like that's hardly have our high school diploma. He didn't earn a high school diploma from the statistics anyway we have. And of course, it's not been easy for him to run the economy of such a large, country. So things are really not streamlined, but we believe things will get better someday.
Right. We stated, and we just may touch on it, that Africa was the beginning of mankind, but where in Africa? It wasn't in Nigeria, though, was it?
That was in Egypt. Egypt, yes. That was the cradle of civilization.
Okay.
That's Egypt, still in the North Africa.
Okay.
It's got a border with Asia, with Israel, Lebanon. Yeah, that's Egypt in Africa. Okay. However, we say that Africa is shaped like a gun, and Nigeria is at the trigger point.
Okay.
Yeah, and from Nigeria, we have a lot of missionaries going out to different parts of the world right now. A lot of missionaries are coming out of Nigeria to different parts of the world, ready to do missions.
Is that West Africa?
That's in West Africa.
Yeah, that's where the slaves were.
That's the slaves route.
Right. Okay.
I met a lady here, one of the teachers in one of the schools that I'm teaching. She said she did her DNA. She's like 77% Nigerian. And she was like 2% Cameroonian. I was like, the slave route is from Nigeria through the Cameroonian border, then to the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
So we can understand what happened in the process of transporting slaves. So I believe that about 3/4 of the slaves that were brought in America came from Nigeria.
Okay.
Because it's the most populous country in Africa, and it's by the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
And we have the slave route was just Nigeria, Cameroon, the Atlantic Ocean. Yes.
It's amazing. We just made touch on it that even though slaves, and about 100 million slaves, I guess, died in the route.
Yeah.
From the slave route, right? Coming to America. And now we have the majority of inventions that's in America was by slaves.
That's right.
Amazing. The White House was built by slaves, and we got so many. I think I have 1,001 inventions, and that's just a supplement that were, invented by slaves.
Wow,
but
amazing.
They were. So I just thought I would mention that we have, even though they were slaves coming out without being educated, then they are the ones that are responsible for all the inventions, the light bulb, and all the items you could name. Academia, and as well as whatever is invented by slaves, Okay, you mentioned about what about the lifespan then with so many people, like 200 million people in such a small area, the lifespan must be short then, huh?
Yes, it's been the statistics has shown that the lifespan of an average man in Nigeria is about 58 years. And that's not good. That's not good at all.
Okay. And then the other thing is the health conditions too.
Well, we're still struggling in those areas. The country is impoverished, and we don't have good facilities. If you conversate with your news, we know that politicians, even the president, goes to London for treatment.
Yeah.
And all the politicians, all the well-to-do senators, all the well-to-do people, businessmen, come to the United States of America for good medical attention. And that's not good for the country. That's where we are at right now. Hopefully, one day, something better is going to happen.
Now, tell us about your school, though. What type of curriculum do you have in your school? What are you trying to
We use
promote?
2 types of curriculum because we want to run a school that can churn out the right kind of graduates that could fit into the society as it is right now, the 21st century society. We have the state curriculum, which the state imposes on every school, and we have the computer curriculum. And that is why we are always asking for computers as donations to the school. So for that, we have online curriculum, which we try to get from here to supplement what we have from the state government in Nigeria. Yes.
Okay. Now, the medical missions, do you have a hospital, or does he just work in a hospital, your husband?
Okay, actually, when my husband was, he used to have his private practice. He had two hospitals. But when we decided to go into full-time missions work, he donated all the equipment in his hospital to the church and started a medical facility inside the church, inside the seminary. And he's run it for about 20-some years, and it's all free of charge.
Wow.
Yeah. However, having equipment of 20 years plus, it needs to be updated. We need fresh and newer equipment. We also need scan equipment like the ultrasound, the scanning, the EEG, the ECG. That would be of great help. The X-ray machines, we don't have those at all. And it's our desire, if we can get donations of such, that would be awesome.
Well, what about donations? I know maybe Community Forum is one of the avenues to let people know about what you're doing, your needs, your objectives, and so forth, you know. But where do they send the materials to get to Nigeria?
Well, actually, we are planning a shipment pretty soon. And if we can get donations of medical equipment, X-ray machines, scan equipment, computers, school textbooks. We also trying to build a school of music attached to the school. We need guitars, keyboards. And we have the Trinity Assembly of God, the Trinity Christian Center, and on Lewis Avenue, 2700 Lewis Avenue.
It's in Zion.
In Zion, Illinois. That would be a good point to assemble some stuff. We don't mind getting books too, uniforms, backpacks, shoes, or whatever, you know, one is led to donate. That'll be welcome.
So you really have really many challenging experiences that you confronted with, you know, trying to make things better there.
Correct.
In Africa.
In Africa. It's been challenging, really. With all the kidnaps going on and the kidnaps of the girls, we've been trying to push in a lot of school buses. We've been trying to get donations of buses we can use to, you know, transport the kids to school and take them back safely. So that would be welcome, getting school buses too.
You mentioned with all the things you're doing in Nigeria, crime rate has to be high too, with the number of congested there.
Yes, a lot of congestion. Yes, we have high crime rate. However, we try to keep safe. We try to, you know, there's no nightlife in Nigeria at all. In those areas, you try to, you know, do your work in daytime. And when it's getting to 5 p.m., you round off whatever, and you got to get back to your houses. You know, so those are the challenges we have to face. You cannot stay out at night for no reason.
Now, do you have students that get scholarships and so forth to come to America?
Well, not right now. We desire to have that. actually, we have a mind of helping the African American kids right here, because being a teacher in the school system right here in the U.S., I see a need to have the African American kid, especially the boys,
Okay.
go down to Africa for like an exchange program. That's going to be really awesome. Here, you see a lot of the African American boys in the special education classes for behavioral issues, you know. And if these boys can be made to come down to Africa to be in the same classroom with kids that have no books,
Okay.
no shirt, no pencil, and they have a desire to learn, and they're learning with whatever they can get.
Yeah.
I know and I believe strongly those kids are going to come back to America being more useful to themselves, having better sense of direction, and being more useful to their parents. And it's my desire, if maybe sometime we talked about the Rotary Club, I don't know, whoever, maybe the churches, if we can come together to get this exchange programs going, that would be a lot of help to the boys, to the little boys in America, the African American boys.
Yes, you. I have a associate of mine that's from Haiti, for example, and he's been on the show several times because you know the earthquake there and
Yeah,
how
I know.
many people still are unhoused, not housed there in Haiti. You know, so I guess everybody's seeking assistance, and I guess where do you go?
Well, I believe that Nigeria is really at a very high point of need right now. If you are listening to the news, you
Okay.
hear that the Muslims are killing the Christians. We have a Muslim president right now. The Muslims are well armed.
Okay.
And when you go back to your houses at nights, you know, they kind of gather around your houses and burn the houses. And they are not prosecuted. And that the government has banned the use of guns by Christians and has asked Christians to submit every weapon, knives, machetes, whatever.
So they have no way of defending
No,
themselves.
you
then?
can't. I mean, these herdsmen who are Muslims, they've got guns worth about 2 million naira each person. And they're going from house to house killing Christians.
Oh my God.
And that's a huge need right now for Christians to get a kind of protection.
Well, to get to God and the promised land, there's only one way. Although we have many denominations in the world saying this is the way, there's only one way, and that's through Jesus Christ. He's saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life, you know. But, well, I guess through all the efforts of the missionaries, I guess they have to keep trying,
Yes.
you know, until.
We cannot run away. We keep trying. We can come into the United States of America, getting support for these
Yeah.
people in Africa. And we hope, I believe that one day, sometime, maybe the President of America will do something about it, you know, trying to protect Christians in Nigeria, or maybe creating our own country out of the nation, or whatever they can do to see that the Christians are safe.
What about the instructors and volunteers for your schools? Are they especially trained to work in the school?
Yes, we use educationists. We work with teachers, well-trained teachers. However, they're not paid much. And we can, if we get for volunteers from here, that would be awesome. For a teacher in the school, we pay like $200 a month. And for the children, the middle school students, they pay like $100 for a term.
Okay.
And for the elementary school children, they pay like $50 for a term. That's like 3 months.
Okay.
And I know we had a program of adopt a child
Yeah.
and adopt a teacher sometime, and if people can come forward and adopt a child for $50, adopt a middle schooler for $50 for $100, and adopt a teacher for $200. That will go a long way to help educate all these kids. All the members of the church and pastors gather together, and he does medical outreaches there too. So the facilities aren't much though. However, like I said, one of our goals of this trip is to raise equipment for medical missions in Africa, as well as ship some computers for our schools. I don't know if we can look at the pictures to see what we've got. We have the chalkboard. That's what we use right now.
Yeah, you probably won't get a chance to see it.
Okay.
Anyway. So you use the.
Yeah, that's me teaching with the chalkboard.
Okay, so you still use the chalkboard there?
Yeah, that's all we've got.
Yeah.
So, but we need a whiteboard, you know. And these are some of the kids. That's me still on the whiteboard. And these are the kids, some of the kids, you know, learning. And as you can see, they're kind of outside. We just use some plastics to make walls. So we need real walls, you know. We need real walls for the kids. You know, but the kids are happy, as you can see. They're really happy. They have their uniforms. They're studying. They're happy. They're learning.
I just noticed in the uniforms. Are they the parents buy uniforms or the school?
They gotta buy the uniforms.
Okay.
Yeah. They gotta buy the uniforms. Yeah, those are the kids. Those are lovely kids.
Right. So how many students do you have in your school?
Okay, for this school, we have about 200 in this school.
Wow.
Yes. In the other schools, we have for the other school we have like 250, and for the high school we have like 500. We used to have like 1,500, but we lost many of the kids because we didn't have enough facilities. So
yeah.
But we're trying to build more facilities. So these are the kids, some of the kids. We learn music, and we need songbooks. We need guitars, keyboards, and we don't have a playground. You know, when I see playgrounds here, I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
You can hardly see a single playground in Africa. It's so rare. Yeah.
The space is not there.
No, we don't have them. The spaces are there.
The spaces are just.
But we don't have them. We don't have the money to buy them. The toys, the playgrounds.
Okay.
You know, the merry-go-rounds, the
Because
swings.
here you got manicured playgrounds, but there you don't have.
Yeah, if we can get like merry-go-rounds, the swings, the seesaws, you know, the slides. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Now you have your school, but what happened is does the state provide any support? The state have their state-run schools also?
Yes, we do, but they don't provide no support. For the state-run schools, it is more difficult because they don't even pay the teachers' salaries. So many times the teachers don't teach, the kids don't go to school. Yeah. And our goal is to empty those schools and get these kids to our schools.
Oh.
If we can fund our schools properly, if we can expand them, pay our teachers, make the fee minimal, and have lots of scholarships, then we can empty these schools and bring them to our schools so they can get good learning. And we teach them etiquettes, we teach them, Christian principles.
Yeah.
And that helps the kids, to grow in the way of the Lord. And when they are grown, they don't depart from the principles we've taught them.
Is that what you're doing in the Zion school system?
Well, the Zion school system is different. I work, many times in the Waukegan, the Zion. I've not been to North Chicago, but I was there like a couple of months.
Okay.
I do my substitute teaching, and I get paid, and I'm able to go back and build more schools.
Yeah.
Ship some of the donations because it costs a lot of money to ship from here.
Okay.
You know, when you want to ship like a container, you are looking at $5,000 to $8,000 for shipment.
Wow.
So when we can raise these donations, we got to ship them, and that's how I'm raising the funds and trying to make the money.
Boy, that's fantastic. I mentioned about basic medical services for these students and adults also. When they walk in for services, do they have medical service, operations, surgery, and?
No, my husband does surgeries, yes. And
Now, can they afford to pay for the surgeries?
They can't pay. They cannot pay. We're able to take up as much as we can, you know, whatever monies we can, whatever support we have.
Yeah.
We take as many patients, but we cannot take all because we are not able to attend to all. But we're looking forward to having a medical team coming up from here and going with my husband to Africa so we can reach out much better than what we've been able to do by ourselves.
So you try to get as many
volunteers
to provide what they call it in-kind services.
Yes, and surgery, physical and physician assistants, nurses, you know, people in the medical field to come out with come join us and go to Africa and get missions going.
The effect of Nelson Mandela. Tell us about Nelson Mandela.
Oh, Nelson Mandela was a freedom fighter from South Africa.
Okay.
And he was in prison for 25 years fighting for freedom.
25 years.
25 good years. But he said it was worth it. He lost his family, lost his wife, lost everything.
Yeah.
But eventually he became the president of South Africa. And that was the first black president.
Yeah.
And he displaced the white president and formed the NCNC. And they're still the ruling party till today. However, we're hearing there's some corruption coming in South Africa, and there's been some changes. But as for Nelson Mandela, he did a great job. He's an example of a black man who is not corrupt. I know many times people say black people are corrupt, and that's why our nation is not doing
corruption is all over. You know?
That's what people. But I know there are black people who are not corrupt. However, there's been a cartel or a cabal which has been instituted by some of the Western powers in Africa because of the resources we have.
Yeah.
You know, South Africa's got a lot of diamonds.
Okay.
And we've got a lot of crude oil in Nigeria. So see, these areas have some, selfish foreigners. Not all foreigners are selfish, but there are some who are selfish, and they come in and they try to get the rich resources and try to work with the government and impose someone who is corrupt in the country and siphon the funds and the resources through the corrupt president. But we have people who are not corrupt, but many times they are not giving a chance to be in offices.
Well, you and your husband both have a great challenge ahead of you. You know, you're trying to attempt to do what God has led you to do, but you got, I guess, people that are not interested in what you're doing, through selfish motives. I guess they try to what kill, steal, and destroy. Is that the efforts of the enemy?
Well, actually, those things are ongoing. Even when Christ was here, he did a lot to heal the sick.
Okay.
He raised the dead. However, humankind still rejected him.
Yeah.
But then we still know that when God calls you for a thing, he makes a way. He's been making ways for us. We've been successful, actually, to be able to move the vision and the mission to a level whereby we can say we've been able to raise kids, we've been able to raise graduates, we've been able to get people go to college, we've been able to change, turn the destinies of families around. Some low-income families right now have children who were able to go to college and then, get jobs and come back and help the parents out, because the schools have been going on since 2001.
Okay.
And we've turned out, we are having grandbabies coming. We've got, yes, we've turned out girls and boys who've had their own children and sending their children back to the same school they attended.
Oh.
And that's, I believe that's a sign of being successful in a place. And for 20-some years, we've been able to discharge medical duties without charging any fee and without having a death in the hospital.
Oh,
We've
yes.
attended to everyone, for people coming with coma, they're attended to, and we've not recorded a single death in the hospital.
That is fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Well, again, if if the local audience want to make contributions, and you say they will send the donations where now?
Well, we have an email, thelordsfavor@gmail.com.
Okay.
We also have a telephone number, is 331-301-9762.
Okay.
They could call me, and whatever, we can set up meetings. We are registered, we are not for profit. We can also write off tax exempts
Yeah.
for donations,
This is fair. Then, initially, you've been doing this for how many years now?
This is like 22 years, right? Yeah, about 22 years.
Then, what piqued your interest just to give up your profession and donate your full time to the ministry? I should say to the ministry, to the Lord's Favor schools and medical missions into Africa.
I guess, it makes me happy,
Uh-huh.
It makes me happy. When you have a vision and that keeps you awake at nights, and you see help coming, you're really happy, and you want to move to the next level. You take it one step at a time. You keep moving.
Uh-huh.
So I have the inner drive in me. Sometimes I've been stranded in America. Sometimes I come into the U.S. with $1.
Wow.
And people don't believe how it happens. I come into the United States with $1 and nowhere to stay. And I've had like 3 situations where someone told me, God spoke to me that someone like you is here. I want to pick you up and I want to take care of you. I'm telling you, this keeps happening. And when I see that happen, I know someone sent me and someone is backing me up. And it keeps happening. I've been in a place where I was at a guest house, a missionary guest house, and I was given 24 hours to quit because I was supposed to stay 2 weeks. And I was there for 2 weeks. And at the end of 2 weeks, I've not had a place to go. And they were like, you need to leave in 24 hours. I didn't have a ticket to go back to Africa, and I've not even gathered resources, the donations. I've not gotten enough donations to go back with. And the Lord spoke to, somebody was sleeping in her house, a white lady, and she was sleeping. She saw me in a trance because I visited her church once and left. She didn't know my address. She just knew my name. She didn't know how to reach me. She was like in a trance, and she saw me. She was giving directives to go to where I was staying in that guest house and get a hold of me and bring me to her house and help me, introduce me to people and gather resources and help me get back to Africa. And she did all that.
Wow.
I was trying to, so the Lord told me to put my stuff together. So the people gave me a 24 hours notice, and as a minister of God, I would not be put to shame. So before they came knocking at the door, this lady came in and knocked. I said, is there any Pastor Favor in here? They're like, yes, what do you want? I want to talk to her. So she now came. She said, the Lord asked me to take you out of this place. I'm like, oh my goodness. I have everything packed, and they gave me 24 hours to leave. And that's how, and when you see stuff like this happen, you are encouraged. You know it's not you. You didn't call yourself. You're not doing it for yourself. You're on a mission for someone. And the person takes care of you. And your joy, you're joyful and you're happy.
So now the challenge is greater now because your husband's with you this time.
Yes, he's visiting, and we've been, you know, going to places together, trying
Yeah.
to get stuff gathered together for the shipment for the medical and the school missions, all going on at the same time.
Now, have you contacted, I'm sure you have, though, medical supplies companies?
Yeah, we've been talking to medical equipment companies. However, you know, it used to be like free of charge. In
Okay.
the past 10 years, they could give you like donations and ask you to ship. But right now, they tell us they want to sell stuff, and we cannot buy stuff.
Yeah.
We're still trying to get connected to refurbished or used,
Yeah.
you know, like to hospitals that are kind of, you know, removing or packing away stuff they're not using. Those could be very good, of very good use in Africa.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned about refurbish when hospitals, hospital
Equipment.
beds and so forth, you
Yeah,
know, where they
ex-
change and upgrade,
Upgraded,
upgrade their
whatever.
beds and so forth. They could be the man-handled beds. It's all electrical now, you know, but the hand crank beds and so forth, you could use them there if you find the source at the hospital, you know, of when they may be getting changing over from the old beds to the new beds
Correct.
and so forth.
Correct.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
For the school, we also need smart boards, overhead projectors, you know,
Uh-huh.
sharpeners, this electric.
Still using pencil sharpeners.
Oh
on
yes,
it?
we need all that.
Yeah. Well, so your ultimate goal, I think you stated it and so forth, and it wouldn't hurt restating it. You told us about your goal and what you're doing and so forth with your schools, but your ultimate goal.
My vision and mission is to see more and more schools planted in Africa and to see kids from here, especially the African American children, go to Africa to such schools for like a week or two or a whole term and do an exchange program. I get to know their potentials.
Yeah.
When they get to study in the same classroom with kids who don't have nothing, they'll come back valuing what America offers to them and be more responsible. So that's the vision, the mission that we have. For medical, we want to have a team of medical volunteers who's going to go with my husband and myself back to Africa, and not just Africa this time, but to other parts of the world that need medical services and help. You know, for short-term medical missionary tours, and still come back to America. We also need volunteers
Okay.
for teachers. Even if one is not a teacher, if you can read from a book, you can read to the children in Africa.
Okay.
We need volunteers who can go out there and be of good help in the school and the medical missions.
And the teachers don't have to spend a full term. As a matter of fact, through their Christmas break, midterm break or something like that, they
Midterm
want to
break or
spend a
summer.
week,
Yes.
other summers and so forth. You know.
Yeah, and I've had a lady from Kenosha go to somewhere, is it India, and do some training of teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, we could also afford having people come over to train our teachers, help our students, even in PE, whatever, music, songs,
Okay.
yeah, in different areas. Yes.
That's just fantastic. The resources that you mentioned here, just natural resources there in Africa, the gold, the diamonds, and so forth, they are mined by the Africans.
Actually, we're not really sure. We keep hearing, I'm not in the government, but we hear that some of the foreign governments have pipes underneath. They tap these resources to their countries, but I don't know for sure which countries are doing such, you know. But we
Yeah.
know there's a lot of bunkering going on. You
Yeah.
know? It's a lot of bunkering,
Yeah.
you know.
So Africa is one of the richest, if not the
Richest continent.
Richest
in the whole-
country,
the
richest
world.
continent in the world, right?
That's right. When it comes to mineral resources and weather,
Yeah.
Africa is the richest. We have good weather. It's summer all through. You plant your seeds, they grow, and you can work 24 hours if you want, if the place is safe, because the weather is good. We don't have winters.
You don't have what is?
No, we don't have winters. We just have summer the whole year. You got trees growing, you got palm fruits, palm trees. Yeah, so Africa is blessed. However, there's a lot of interest in Africa, and that's killing the management and the resources and got the place really corrupt. There's so many interests from different nations of the world trying to grab the same resources from the Africans.
What about entrepreneurs there in
They're doing really
Nigeria?
good. Entrepreneurs are doing really good. Bill Gates was in Nigeria a couple of months ago. He said he's invested over, some billions. I don't know if he said about 200 billion in Nigeria alone. And
So he's going to invest that?
oh, he did. He
he did?
yeah,
Okay.
he did already. And he was trying to
Wow.
talk to the government to be to be stable, because we've had instability in government, different governments. This one comes in, another one goes out, this one comes in. It's been a lot of instability, corruption, and the killings too.
Okay.
That has a real bad effect in the nation's economy. Many of the missionaries we have in the church had to withdraw. The Assembly of God, my church, had to withdraw many of their missionaries because of the instability and the killings by the herdsmen and the Muslims killing Christians. And it looks like the world has ignored the Christians in Nigeria, which baffles some of us. When the Muslims were being killed in Turkey, one of the presidents went to Turkey, brought them over here, and put them in refugee camps.
Okay.
But right now, the Christians are being slaughtered like chickens in Nigeria. And if you look at world history, the part of Nigeria where we have Christians are the lost tribe of the Jews.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are suffering pogrom like the Israelites have been suffering, and the Jews have been suffering pogrom in the Jewish land. And we've been, some of the people are agitating for their own Jewish nation, because we know we're part of the lost tribe of the Jews, and history has proven it. Even in the world, we have artifacts in the World Museum that shows we're part of the lost tribe of Israel in Nigeria, and we're under heavy persecution from the Muslims.
The lost tribe of Jews.
Yes, of the Jews.
Been found in
Yes.
Nigeria.
Yes, they're called the Igbos
Hebrews.
from the word Hebrew.
Yeah.
We're called the Igbos from the word Hebrew. And we have a lot of words in common, and we have a lot of traditions in common. We share the same tradition, like in the betrothal. Remember the betrothals, how you get betrothed to a wife in the Jewish culture, and how you take your wife at night. That's the same exact way the Hebrews in Nigeria get married. Yeah, and that's why in the Bible you have Jacob being deceived and given a different wife at night. So however rich you are and you come to get married in the Hebrews tribe, you got to wait till night before you can take your wife. That's the culture, yes.
So tradition is still
It's still there.
there.
Yeah. And we have the tradition of the elders ruling the community. We don't have like a king. We have the rulership of the elders,
Okay.
the tribal leaders, like the
Okay.
12 tribe of Israel having the elders, ruling.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have that in amongst the Igbos in Nigeria. And these are the people that slaughtered most, because they are the Christians in Nigeria.
Oh, wow. Then, even with all that's going on, the family structure is still important, right?
Yeah, it is important, very important.
I know it's from time beginning is still the families.
It is very important. In fact, I can add something more than what I said. We have the kosher okay?
Okay.
Every Friday. In the usual Igbo family, we hold our vigils on Fridays.
Okay.
And every Christmas season, we all travel home. Yeah, you got to come home. You got to be home for Christmas Eve. So for even in the United States of America, you see a lot of people buying tickets and traveling to Nigeria for the Christmas celebrations, because that's a family celebration, and that's part of the Jewish culture.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, this is fantastic. We're very happy that we have benefited, and like I said, I have benefited right along with my audience.
Thank you.
About your schools and also your medical mission, and to see that a husband and wife are working together. Do we have many teams like this in Africa, where husband and wife working together as a team?
There could be, but I don't know. What I know is
This is real dedication.
I know we're kind of divinely connected, because before we got married, my dad prophesied. He wanted a couple. He wanted medical missions going out there. He wanted school missions, but he was a pastor. He didn't have that education. He was not an educationist. He was not a medical doctor.
Yeah.
But he was prophesying. He was telling the church that the Assembly of God, he was being the first pastor of Assembly of God Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
He wanted the church to move into schools,
Okay.
missions, and medical missions. And at that point, I came along, became a teacher, and I got married to a medical doctor.
Okay.
And both of us went to the seminary.
Okay.
And then, from there, we took off with the medical and school missions.
Well, what about siblings now? You have
I've got siblings, we lost two, we have about 9 siblings. Yeah.
9?
Yeah, well, there are 10 of us.
Wow, wow. I'm jealous that I'm the only child in my family.
You are.
Oh,
wow, you are blessed.
And I'm not spoiled either, Are they still there in Nigeria then?
We have some in Nigeria. We have some here in the U.S. I lost one of my brothers here in the U.S. He was a medical doctor too.
Oh.
But, we were all over. We're the lost tribe of the Jews. And the Jews are known to be migrants. They move around.
Yeah.
And they're aggressive in business. So we've got
Okay.
a lot of movement going on.
Right. Well, again, too, Augustus Asonye.
Favor. Augustus Asonye, my late dad, he was the first pastor of Assembly of God in Nigeria. And that's his picture right there. This is his picture. This is his photograph. I don't know if the camera can pick it. So
Oh, it's
he's actually the initiator of this vision. When he was telling us how to be the school and medical missions, we were like, we didn't understand what he was saying.
yes, yeah, I
We were
can
like-
understand.
And he had me so close to him. I was the closest daughter.
Okay.
We slept on the same bed, and I took care of his food. And
Then you were spoiled then, huh?
well, people say I was spoiled. I don't know if I am.
Right.
But he never let me out of his sight. So, and I never knew I was going to be a pastor, a minister.
Yeah.
I never. But it seems he knew, because he never let me out of his sight. And by the year he was dying, the last assignment he handled was to hand me over to my husband.
Is that
He actually
right?
died in Oak Brook, Illinois, but he had to come to Nigeria to perform the rites
Right.
of my getting married to my husband. And that was the last rite he performed until his death.
Memorial.
Died a couple of months after.
That's a great memory there, Well, again, too, I'd like to congratulate you and your husband for doing the work that you're doing. This is fantastic. The Lord's favors schools and medical missions to Africa, and not just to Nigeria, but
to Africa.
to Africa.
And to the African Americans in the United States of America.
Okay.
In
no.
diaspora. The Africans in diaspora.
Okay, right. Okay, I could say thank you again. I cannot. Your check will be in the mail.
Wow.
Literally, though, I'm sure that many checks going to be coming in the mail too. And let's see if I got this correctly here. This is Trinity Christian Center, 2700 Lewis Avenue, Zion, Illinois, 60099, right?
You can make it care of the pastor, or you can make it care of Pastor Favor or Pastor Tim, just, whatever,
To make sure that,
it gets to the lost favor, it gets to us.
right. Okay, you have to be a success because this is God's will.
I believe.
You know, and it has to be fulfilled. Now there are other, like I say, families. There are many other families that do the same thing you're doing, and other thing. Maybe not the schools or medical mission, but
not really. We're the only pastors in my family. However, we have a 27-year-old daughter who is also an education. She has a master's degree in French and education.
okay.
So she's toeing our footsteps, and we're glad that we're able to get one of our daughters to serve as a pastor. She's
Okay.
currently in the Bible school, the Premier Bible School in Nigeria. It's the largest actually in West Africa. That's where she is at right now, and she is overseeing the schools
Okay.
also.
Well, mention about the necklace that you're wearing is made in Nigeria.
Yes, those are beads from Nigeria, and that's the bag to go with it. That's it's a match with the beads.
They're
Those are made in Nigeria.
made in Ni-
yes.
Oh, this is fantastic. And
Those are handmade, actually.
okay, yeah,
Purely
right. I can,
handmade. That's no.
I can
Everything about it is handmade.
I can. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Well, I wonder, how long does it take to fly to Nigeria?
Oh, 24 hours.
24
Yes.
hours.
You have 2 flights for 18 hours, then another one for like 8 hours. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you very much again
Thank you, Dr. Brooks.
for taking time to be with us. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we've been talking with Pastor Favor
Sonia.
Asanya Okafor. Oh, I got that right. The Lord's Favor Schools and Medical Mission to Africa. This has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.